This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Children of Shadow? This is Stephen, your host with Fantology Podcast, along with my lifelong friends, Ryan and Jake. We are covering Midnight Tides by Stephen Erickson, but just the first half. So parts 1 and 2 are books 1 and 2 of book 5 of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. And we decided in previous reviews, we've done the full book, but I decided that if I'm going to spend the time to read these massive books that are like not only a lot of words, but the words are, take a bit to get through. I decided we're going to make the most of this and make at least 2 episodes for these books to, kind of maximize, I guess make the most of all the time that we're spending reading them. I think that's fair, but so I haven't read past the first half. Jake's read like maybe a couple of chapters past the first half, and Ryan has read the whole series, but we're going to keep spoilers to nothing past book 2 of Midnight Tides.
So really quick, I have finished the series. It's been a bit for me at this point. I just checked my Goodreads because I've marked the date that I finished the book, and I finished this book in October of 2019. So it's been more than 3 years for me.
So you're really fresh on this.
Yeah, really, really fresh. And I think that, like you mentioned, these books are dense. And a lot of those finer details, I think, have faded from my memory. So this is gonna be a good discussion, and I think a good refresher for me.
That's just Ryan trying to give himself an excuse.
That's absolutely what it was.
Three years is kind of a fair excuse.
I'm just kidding. Yeah,
I have no excuse because I just read the first half, but I missed a lot of details because I was reading through some summaries and I didn't realize what was actually going on in several parts. So that's just the nature of these books, to be honest. And I guess that's part of the charm of them, is like figuring out all of the, details of what is actually going on in these convoluted plots. Honestly, for me, that's not what I enjoyed the most about the Malazan books. I think especially in this one, I like the characters the most. I like the journeys and just kind of like the plot that they're going through. And as far as like the lore and what's going on with the holds and the different legendary figures like Father Dark and Shadow and Light and all these things and all of the ancestors of different gods, etc. Like, I don't even know the right terms. None of those things really interest me quite as much because I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of lazy and don't want to do the work to piece together exactly what's going on.
I think it requires a lot of effort, and there are people who love Malazan to the point where they are willing to put all of these pieces together, and that they derive a lot of satisfaction from that. I think all of us are maybe a little bit more on the casual side, where we enjoy the books and enjoy kind of like a surface level reading of it, but we're not delving below the surface very much.
So if you're one of those hardcore fans, continue listening at your peril of being offended by our level of being noobs, of just not understanding some things that are going on, and I don't know, maybe just like enjoy our naive perspective on the books.
Yeah, I would love to know all the lore perfectly in Malazan. I think it's fascinating and super cool, but I don't have the talent yet. But maybe one day we can get to that point.
I think it takes like a read or 2, probably maybe 2 or 3, to really like go through, because it seems like a lot of these details aren't necessarily like fully uncovered until you get to events of later books.
Yeah.
Like having read this one would have helped me understand Troll way more in book 4, because he was just kind of like a blah character to me in book 4. Like, really, not that interesting, never really got what was going on with him exactly. But in book 5 in Midnight Tides, I really enjoy his parts. So I think if I had that, if I go back and reread the series ever, reading book 4, I'll pick up on him right away.
Yeah, was he with he was with the Imas guy, right? In book 4.
Yeah. Is that guy's
And they
name
went-
Onrak, maybe?
On the Broken. And
Yeah.
and yeah, I was just like, okay, I know what Imas are. I don't know what Tista Edor are at all. And like, he just honestly, when it's funny because like when I first read book 4, I imagined him as this just like really old guy and like kind of eccentric, and then reading him and this, I'm like, oh no, I did not get this guy right at all. It's like they're like two different characters, and I don't think that's necessarily the writing, but just my interpretation of his almost like cameo in book 4 compared to
Well, I mean, time definitely passes in between the two, and
it's hard to know how
and
much
we see
time.
him in book 4 being he's shorn from the Edor, right?
Yeah.
And we don't get too many details, and I think we're going to uncover those details in the course of this book or possibly the next, because I heard the 5th and 6th kind of tied together. But, and is that true, Ryan? Actually, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong there.
Sorry, say it one more time.
Books 5 and 6 tie together, right? They're kind of like same characters.
Yes, they do.
Okay. So I'm speculating that by the time we get through book 6, we'll maybe have caught up with where he was at the beginning of book 4. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would have liked book 4 more if I had read book 5 and 6 before it.
I don't know, he plays such a small part in book 4 though, and I mean it's not just like a cameo, it's more than that, but it is small enough. And at the time when reading, I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. This troll guy again, but maybe to your point, if I did know who he was, I'd be excited for his parts to pop up again. It's
Steven,
interesting.
Sorry, I have to correct myself. I looked it up, and it's actually books 5 and 7 go together. So it's Midnight Tides and Reaper's Gale.
Continuing the trend.
Book 6, Bone Hunters, returns to some other characters like Apsalar and Cutter and Hiboric Ghost Hands.
Okay.
So
excited to see those guys again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like continuing the Malazan trend of leapfrogging storylines.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're into book 5, and now we've started entirely new storylines.
Kind of, yeah. I do like how the end of book 4, Troll Sengar is like, let me tell you the story, like my story finally. And then you get book 5, which is that. And you kind of get that as well with at the end of Memories of Ice, you see is it pronounced Diker? Or
Yeah.
And that's, I know those are like the history of it was Memories of Ice was supposed to be written before what's the name of that? I always want to say Dead House Gates, but it's not. Or is Dead House Gates the second one?
Dead House is second.
Oh, it is. Okay. So it's supposed to be written before, but I do like how you think Diker died, and then at the end of Memories of Ice, he's also like, let me tell you my story. I don't know. I like that that trend.
Gotcha. I think I like book 5 better, like a lot better than book 4. Book 4 was a bit of an endurance test for me at times, but I was really enjoying book 5. And I think a lot of it has to do with Tehol, however you say his name. Really great character, and like the humor is top notch there.
I really pronounce it Tehol.
Same.
Tehol. Okay,
Tehol. Or Tehol. Yeah.
Tehol. Okay. Yeah, him and Bug are that's a good. There's some very like laugh out loud moments there. So, Erickson can be very like he has a lot of different he can write tones. In a lot of different ways. Yeah.
Because it gets so dark and brooding and like pensive and just like philosophical, and then you have like the whole plot line with what's his name, Udala. I can never remember his name.
Ublala Punk.
Ublala Punk, and how like those three ladies are just way into him, and he's like, quit using me for my body. I want to be in
Is
love.
is it blah blah or ooh
Ooh
la
la la.
la?
Ooh la la.
Ooh la la.
Yeah. Yeah, Tehol's great.
There's my dad joke.
I do think book 4 had a really strong start to it with Karsa, and just like that continual story of Karsa Orlong, and but then it does get pretty complicated and confusing. I think it gets a little bogged down because of how confusing it is, where this book, similar to the continual storyline of Karsa, I feel like you have even though it is a new story, you have a continual like rising tension where every POV like plays into every conflict more understandably from the beginning.
Right. Like right from the beginning, it points you at this conflict between the Lethiri and the Edor, and that's coming up, and all the characters are kind of moving in that direction. They're all kind of, involved in different plots along the way. And then there's these undertones of the lore stuff, which is set up in the prologue. And you get some hints there. I know I didn't catch everything, but I'm getting a sense that the lore and the kind of like secret history there of the Edor ancestor killing the Andy ancestor, like I feel like that's going to become really important somehow. And so I'm expecting all of these things to come together really nicely in this one book, where previous Malazan books have been a little more scattered, and for that reason I'm really enjoying Midnight Tides.
I feel like this is similar to Memories of Ice, where you really understand how each POV like will come to, like play into each other. I also really like how you get like there's two main societies, right? The Tisti Edor so far, and then the Lethiri so far. We're all going to be pronouncing these differently because of reading and listening.
Yeah.
So, but also you have members of those societies. Some of them, like there are people from the Lethiri nation who are very pro-Lethiri interests and very anti-Lethiri interests. And there are people from the Tisti Edor nation who are very pro-Edor interests and very anti-Edor interests. And you can tell there's this tension of like pretty much a coming war. Like that's how part 2 ends, is like, okay, war's happening. And that's been like, that tension's been building, the will they, won't they. And on either side, there's factions that really want the war to happen, that really don't want, like, I think Tehol Beddict's character is so interesting, how he feels like he's seen the corruption from his own people, the Lethiri. And so he's like, I feel bad for like the colonialism I've done. I need to join with the Edor to help them like fight back against the Lethiri. But then you have the king of the Edor at the time, the warlock king. I can't remember how to say his name.
Hanan Mosag, something like that.
Something like that.
It's like Hanan Mosag, maybe.
Mosag. Yeah. But you have like, he's like the king of the Edor, and he does not want to fight. He's like, we're not going to play into their games, because it seems like there's been this like series of the Lethiri making like contracts with local tribes and then breaking the contracts that goad them into war and then dominating them. And so Hanan Mosag's like smart enough to see through that, it seems like. Anyways, it's just really interesting and very real and multi-dimensional to have all these different people with different interests coming from the different sides. And it's not just all the Edor versus all the Lethiri. Like you have the infighting on the Lethiri side as well. And then Udanas, he's a really interesting character. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, nicely summed
Really
up.
like it.
There's some characters I definitely don't understand as much. Udanas is one. I don't think I picked up on exactly what was going on with all of his visions. And
yeah, he's had like one of the more mystical plot lines.
Yeah.
So I recently refreshed my view on Udanas, and he was basically in indentured servitude in Lether before becoming a slave in the Tista Edor nation. And he almost sees being a slave preferable to being an indentured servant in Lether. And he sees visions because he was, I think, tainted by wyvern blood. And So he's seeing stuff because of the
He's
potency.
tainted
of
by the
that.
wyvern, and then this like
There's a
Tisti
shadow
Andy,
race.
yeah, the Tisti Andy spirit comes and becomes
Is it
his
Withal?
shadow
Withal?
almost.
Wither.
Yeah, yeah.
Wither. They're so confusing. There's Withal, the blacksmith, right? And then
Oh yeah.
a Withal, which is the drag, like the invisible dragon spawn thing, and then Wither. It's confusing.
Yeah. So we get what Udanos sees a vision of the actual past that happens with gosh, I don't remember the name. Silchas Ruin and
Yeah, Silchas Ruin.
Scabandari
Scabandari
Blood-Eye.
Yeah, those ones. Nice.
I think their names are so cool.
They're so cool. Yeah,
I'm like, why can't I think of names this cool?
I know.
And
then
They're all
he-
taken by Malzahn.
was Male in that vision too?
I think that was in the prologue.
In the prologue.
I don't know
Typical
if-
Malazan
Yes.
fashion to have events that are like hundreds of thousands of years in the past.
A
Yeah,
true
and
prologue.
keeping that all straight in your mind is
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's tough.
The
Another
scale
thing I
of
did
these
not
books is-
understand, I didn't understand what was going on with Briss Beddict, where when he went like down to the bottom of the ocean and tried to
That
meet
part
up with
was so
Male,
cool.
and
That was
there
so
was like
cool.
this guardian thing that he had to end up fighting.
He was
I don't
guardian-
think I understood any of that.
so
Guardian
he was
of the
guarding,
Names.
Yeah, guardian of the names. He was like, I can't remember if this is actually how it was described or just how my brain like envisioned it. Like all these like time capsuled gods that didn't have worshippers anymore, and like no one remembered their names other than the guardian of the names, and so they're just like these formless entities down there. And then I just thought it was so cool. He's like, okay, I'll remember their names. Like, tell me their names. Also, that's what the Warlock King's original like power came from, right? Is he like somehow got one of those nameless entities to serve him, kind of like enslaved one, I think.
Was that what it was? And that was what ended up like attacking the trait. That like port city.
I don't know what that, but this might be something. This might be a theory I had, and then when I reread it, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is for sure what it is." Where, because it says Henan Mosag has like this like unseen entity thing that like it uses magic outside of the shadow magic they're used to. And then the guardian of the name says someone else had gone down there and stolen one of the gods or one of the nameless gods. Maybe that's a supposition on my part.
Yeah, so I just refreshed my memory on this. So
Tell us.
the Lether was worried that they had somehow, that the Warlock King had somehow manipulated Male into serving him or doing his bidding. And then they sent Breeze Beddict down to figure out what happened. And I think he was the mage guy, the Sita, is the one who maybe made that possible. And then he went down, fought the Guardian of the Names, and then the Guardian of the Names was like, "Did you steal this? Demon god from us?" Something like that. And he was like, "No, I don't have. I didn't," basically. And so I guess somehow the Warlock King had stolen this demon.
Yeah. And then he goes down there asking for Male, and the Guardian says that Male hasn't been there for thousands of years, right? So, and then I think when he comes back out, he tells, I think it was the Sita, and he's like, "Well, we thought they were working with Male, and that's where their power is coming from, but it must have been one of the stolen nameless entity or something like that."
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that part was cool. He like defeats the Guardian, and then he's like dying. He's like, "Here, have some of my blood." He's like, "Don't make me take too much; it'll kill you." And I just feel like there's like so much potential for that. And like knowing Malazan things, someone's getting like incredible powers from that interaction and exchange somehow.
So if Hanan Mosag, what I probably butchered that, he has to have some connection to the crippled god too, right? Because he knows about the sword. And
Well, he's seen
it
that
seems
in
like
visions, right?
okay.
I
So
assume
did
the
the crippled god
is
set
sending
up
him.
the sword, or did he
Yeah.
take advantage of the sword? Like, is the sword something that is a result of the blacksmith that the crippled god
Yeah.
recruited with all whatever his name is?
So the way I understand it from my reading, and Ryan, you can correct as the more expert, is the crippled god like basically captured Withal to create that sword. And that was in the prologue as well. And then you see the scene when after Rhulad dies, you see his like,
Right.
I guess his spirit like arrives at that place as well, that island where the crippled god is at. And there the crippled god shows him the sword and says that Hanan Mosag, like he'd been showing visions of Hanan Mosag where to get that sword and to take it, but that he is betrayed by the Warlock King because instead of like the crippled god really wants him to use it to like, I don't know if just go to war against the Lethri or just to like go to war in general, but the Warlock King doesn't want to do that. He just wants to take that power to make sure they can't be annihilated themselves. And then that's why he chose Rhulad instead to take the sword.
Yeah, I
don't know.
think that Hanan Mosag was a little bit intelligent, a little bit more intelligent than Rhulad. So he was wise enough to recognize the crippled god's manipulations and, have his own plans, whereas the crippled god recognized Rhulad was much more able to be manipulated to his will.
Yeah. Was that when my question is, was this before or after he touched the sword? Rhulad, like he grabbed the sword and then died fighting those snow wildlings.
Soul taken guys.
The Jeks.
The Jeks, yeah.
Yeah.
Like did this happen before and that's why he grabbed the sword and then died? Or was he able to have this interaction because he had grabbed the sword and died with it?
I think it's because he grabbed the sword and died.
Because I wondered how much of Rhulad was in the crippled god's plans, or if it was like, here's a better opportunity. But
yeah, I don't think he was.
Seems
I don't
like
think
a guy
he was
who,
in his plans.
Like he just seems like a guy who sets up a lot of different possibilities and then he takes advantage of whatever happens for him.
Yeah. So
kind of like Sauron in Rings of Power.
No, nothing like Sauron in Rings of Power. Sauron doesn't do anything in Rings of Power.
Yeah. Sidebar. One interesting thing about all that is, so I looked on Reddit, the source of all truth, and they said that this book happens kind of simultaneously with Gardens of the Moon. So all of the crippled god stuff that has happened for us in books 2, 3, actually, I don't even remember if the crippled god is the thing in book 2, but the stuff that we've kind of been piecing together, that stuff's all like after this book.
Yeah, I've heard that the timeline is pretty messy and that there are things that happen at the same time and before and after, like when you think it happens. Because I thought they mentioned like coral or something in this book, I thought, or maybe that was book 4.
I don't remember it in this book. I could be wrong.
But yeah, I don't know if the crippled god was in Deadhouse Gates, other than the fact that like the whirlwind was later tied to the crippled god, like part of his plans. I don't know if it was from the beginning, but yeah. I mean,
this comment is also like way off on the far, looking at my map, it's like way off to the southeast. Actually, I can't see the map from here. Anyway, it's way off to the to the corner of the world, which is I like maps. So it's kind of it's interesting to think that like every book we're getting like more and more expansive in this world. I like when authors do that with their epic fantasies.
It's fascinating how well Stephen Erickson introduces like new societies and cultures and peoples where they don't like they're different enough from each other. They don't feel like just a rehash of like other ones you've had time with. Yeah, I feel like this book, especially like the whole Lethery culture is so interesting, and how they have, I guess they don't have a ton, but there's like multiple undead characters. Like people in the city love to do undead curses on people.
Yeah.
And
the
how,
drowning punishment for the prisoners, that was really
Yeah.
unique and interesting.
I think that's why this book made me think of The Lies of Locke Lamora, because I was
I could see
imagining
that. Yeah, there's kind
like
of
the
similar levels
setting.
of like intrigue, and I could see
And,
like
like-
a Venetian
Yeah.
type. Yeah.
and then Tehol being like a clever thief kind of thing. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
he's Father Chains. That's how I imagine it when I read it. But yeah.
But a
Jake,
lot.
I feel like there was
nicer.
another review we did recently where you said somebody reminded you of Father Chains.
Was there? I've been thinking this guy specifically reminds me of Father Chains. And then Shirk, what's her last name? Shirk
Elal.
Alal. She reminds me of like a a much more mature Monscato. And it could just be because of a like how should I say it? Like a weathered thief. I don't know like if that'd be spoilers to go into that, but yeah. And it might also be because the what is
Well,
that
'cause
area in First Law called?
in the circle of the world.
Yeah, it's like it's
uh,
similar to like Italy as well, like the city.
Yeah, Styria. Yeah.
Styria, yeah. So maybe that's why all of them are coming back to that. But
Yeah, there's a subtle Renaissance Italian vibe throughout.
but yeah, that drowning punishment, it's like, all right, this is the fine. I think if I understand right, like you have a fine for every crime, and if you can't pay the fine, then you have to walk the weight of that fine underwater. And if you survive, then you're fine. No pun intended, that last fine.
And if you have 4 lungs like Ublala,
Yeah,
then no problem.
no problem. Yeah. I love the like ultra capitalist themes of the Lethery nation. I think that's it's very interesting to see that in like a fantasy medieval setting. You don't usually see it in that context. I feel like you'd see that more like cyberpunk or something like that.
With the way that they handle the debts and
Well, just that like money is like very highly revered and like in their society, you know, pretty much
Well,
everything revolves around that.
Yeah, and I was thinking of what Steven said with how they learned about the other people and basically like used capitalism to indebt them and basically take over.
Yeah. Fascinating.
yeah, everything in Lether was really interesting. There were some parts that kind of bogged down for me, like everything with Saren, Paddock, and Baruch the Pale, like that just seems like a bunch of setup. I'm assuming it will pay off, but thus far, like I haven't really got anything out of their travels over to the Edor, other than the kind of interest of Tehol Beddict and whatever he's going to do. Seems like he could single-handedly like unhinge everything and create a bunch of chaos. So that'll be interesting. I like that Tehol is kind of supporting him from the shadows a little bit.
Yeah, the 3 brothers are interesting. I like how they're so different, but they all are kind of, they're like, they haven't bought into the propaganda of where they live in various degrees. Like Tehol is like openly like treasonous. Tehol is, I guess, more subtly treasonous. And then Bryce is like a champion of the king, but also is like trying to do what good he can from that position.
I get I don't know. He seems a little clueless to me.
Bryce?
Of the 3, he's the one who doesn't know what's going on.
I feel like that's Tehol. I think Bryce is more intelligent and like he's the more cautious one who's like slowly investigating. I feel like Rhulad Beddict is the one who's like, I'm mad, let's go to war. Like I feel like what he's going to do.
Well, at least Hole and Tehol have plans of some sort, and Bryce is just kind of like along for the ride. Like he's really reactionary to
I feel like he's
whatever else is going
investigating
on.
more. But yeah, he is. I mean, he is more constrained by his position, I think. But like he's able to like warn Tehol about Garen Eberict, is that his name?
Oh yeah,
the other
Eberict,
champion.
Eberict, something. Yeah, the
How
guy
he's
who
like-
set up the assassination on
Yeah.
the king to get his spot of yeah.
I'm really interested to see where that goes. Like he's kind of like set up to be like a villain, right? Because of like setting up to get that power. But I wonder if he's more of an anti-hero where, because they say he's like killing people across the city, right? Like he just does what he wants. He can
Mhm.
basically kill anybody and he does so. But he like when talking to Bryce, it seemed like he was aware of how corrupt their society is as well. And I wonder if he's like intentionally killing people who are like part of the problem, like in a Punisher sort of way. I don't know. I'm interested to see where that goes, to see if he's like, they find out they're really on the same side when because he says like to Bryce, like, oh, you're not on my list. Like, I wonder if the people on his list are people who he thinks are like oppressing the rest of society. I don't know.
Yeah, I just got the vibe that he was against every other character and just kind of this selfish, bloodthirsty guy.
He might be. I think
So that would be a big twist.
I think it'd be interesting to see like, oh, we're on the same side. You are just a ruthless person going about this, you know. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Same. I kind of see him as I was wondering if him and Hole would kind of be like foils to each other, where Rhulad Beddict is like wants to do violence in the name of good, but like the violence Hole wants is in line with what the crippled god wants, so that's probably not the best like alignment to be with. Whereas Garen Eberict is violent, but maybe his goals are for peace, you know, violence to peace. I don't know, instead of for war. But
I think they do set up as good foils to each other, but I don't know exactly how that's going to play out. It could be like you say.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know how we've gone this long without talking about like the freakiest part of this whole book.
The best scene so far.
Rhulad comes back to life, man. That was the most captivating chapter of the book for me. Even better than all the funny Tehol scenes. When he came back to life after being buried by the death ritual of the coins fused to his body, like starts just screaming, and Udanos is freaking out, and the whole village doesn't know what's going. That was I thought quite something. That I could visualize that so distinctly.
Yeah, I thought Udanos was dead then. I was like, he's waking up screaming in pain and is going to kill the first person he sees, and Udanos is right there.
He's got a sword stuck to his hand.
Yeah. Luckily he survived. But yeah, that was, I remember when you said you were reading and I was like, this book has like one of the like most horror type scenes I think I've read in a really long time. Definitely in Malazan, the most horror scene there. That was really cool though.
It was scary. I was scared, but also like not scared in a way that I was going to get nightmares, but scared in like a what the heck type way.
Just like
it was really
visual.
interesting how they used Rhulad. Like he kind of seems, at least from what I recall, he kind of seemed like immature and like annoying, and like how he changed so dramatically with this one scene. He just became like, you know, almost a monster.
Yeah, he was very petulant, like typical unbloodied, right? And then it's like, I feel like this does a really good job of showing what the crippled god does. You've seen a little bit of it, like Memories of Ice, where that one servant of his like meets with him, and then he like takes away his legs after that, and like
he cures his cancer, I think.
That was it.
And then takes away the use of his legs.
and I think this like that what happens with Rhulad is another really good like showcase of what he does, where he's like, okay, now you have all this power, but in order to have this power, you have to be like broken and suffering. Yeah. And just the visual of like coins seared into his skin and like fused to him, and like his face half covered in like that wax and everything. It's so cool.
Every time Rhulad comes on screen now, I just have this anxiety, like he needs to get those coins off. Those coins are really messing him up. He's got to figure out some way to get those coins off, but he doesn't seem to care thus far. And maybe that just kind of reveals a lot about my personality, but I would really like him to clean that up.
They did remove the ones from his eyelids, right? Did it rip off his eyelids with it, or did they just get them off?
I don't think it ripped off the eyelids, but they're like,
I don't know how you could take them off without doing that.
Yeah, well, Unanas is pretty experienced.
He's good.
And there was a whole part about how he couldn't make those ones quite as hot as the other ones.
Because you didn't want the eyes to pop, right? That was
he has seen the eyes pop before.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I okay, another like kind of theory question. So at the end of House of Chains, or towards the end of House of Chains, like you find out Karsa Orlong has been groomed this whole time to be like the warrior of the House of Chains, right? Or I don't know what the actual title is, but like
maybe the knight.
I don't know if it'd be the knight or the sword, or the knight of the House of Chains. And he like denies it. He's like, I'll free the crippled god just to kill him. Like he's classic Karsa. But is this with Rhulad? Is this like his replacement then, do you guys think? Or just
Karsa happening? I think this is all happening.
Oh, this is before. Yeah, this is before. Was this do you think this is an earlier attempt then?
I can't remember. It seems more like Rhulad would be the king. Or wait, no, he already has a king, doesn't he?
I think so.
Man, I don't remember.
I think I think he has a king, but I don't remember if that's something I accidentally spoiled for myself or if it was read in a past book.
We need an updated reading of the Deck of Dragons.
Yeah.
Every podcast needs to feature an update from us of the Deck of Dragons.
Yeah. I mean, the tiles don't work anymore, right?
Yeah. So that was another thing I didn't understand. Like, I know the holds are kind of like the primitive,
the ancient,
more like
Warrens.
The more like primeval aspects of the magic compared to the actual houses are a little more solidified. So we haven't really messed with the house. I felt much more comfortable with the houses from the previous books. We've seen those a lot. The holds are pretty nebulous to me. So I didn't understand what was going on there nearly as much.
This is why I thought it took place closer to Memories of Ice, because one of the readings they talk about the beast hold and how the wolves have taken over the beast hold.
That there's two like rulers there. Yeah.
But maybe it was like more of a prophecy and it's like this is going to happen, but it isn't like happening at that exact moment. But
yeah, that's a good point. I don't know.
But yeah, so I don't know. And I guess okay, maybe did Perrin need to accept the cripple god? Did he need to accept the House of Chains for it to actually have like members of the house? If so, then this would be before that, right?
Yeah,
so Rhulad wouldn't be part
of
that,
right? Because he agrees to accept it, so that they're also bound by the same.
Yeah, he lets it into the official deck.
But I don't know
it's a new expansion pack after he allows it in.
Got to get the new Deck of Dragons. In my mind, the Deck of Dragons, you just have a Deck of Dragons, and it like when a new deck or a new expansion is added, it just appears in the deck. I don't know if you
pushes pushes the update, automatic update.
Yeah, automatic.
Directly, I mean, how else would the readings be accurate?
Right. Or you're like, hey, I have this from like 3,000 years after Burn Sleep. I need to get the 3001 year update version. Could you get me that? Yeah, because they do say if you accept him to the deck, he has to play by the same rules. And I don't know if
Right.
that is the same, like, is that what we should be inferring by like having members of the house? Is that them playing by the same rules?
Yeah, I think that, like that Jafar moment
Yeah.
is, that's what's going
Unlimited
on there.
power. Itty bitty living space. Yeah.
It's all copied from, well, I think
Yeah.
Aladdin actually came before Erickson, but yeah.
But they had already developed their world before Aladdin.
Before Disney's Aladdin.
Yeah,
I have no
before
idea what their
Disney's
original
Aladdin.
story is
the
like.
I feel
Aladdin
like these
movie.
they probably are separate. I think we're, yeah.
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 Okay. What else do we need to talk about from this book?
I'm loving the actually I can't remember if this has happened.
What character are
Sidebar.
you thinking of?
Just have I'm loving how like the plan Hanan Mosag has had of like first of all, it's funny how the whole book, like the whole like drama of the main story is like, hey, they hunted these seals where they weren't allowed to hunt seals. Like, I think that's a very funny, like mundane start to this like epic war that's about to take place. But I think that's pretty true to like world history. Trade is so important, and like,
Yeah.
Especially back in those times, like those types of resources were really important. But I love just how tempered and wise Hanan Mosag has been with, we're not going to play into their traps. We're not going to like fight back right away and like
that
this.
has happened.
Okay.
In the negotiations, they I think the prince or the eunuch, one of them,
this has happened,
is like, hey, you hunted our seals, you owe us this money, because even though it was illegal, you still, you
took the
seals.
bodies. Yeah.
But, and then it's like, well, no, we don't have the bodies, so actually
So
you
owe
us
us.
for
This is like a weird thing to be really excited for in an epic fantasy series where you have mortals becoming gods and gods like warring against each other, but just that political economic maneuvering, I was like, oh yeah, that was so like even keeled and like tempered and wise of a plan. I don't know, that to me that was like really good payoff there.
Yeah, I didn't really like Mosag much until he was dethroned.
Same, yeah. He seemed more like a villain to me. Before then, I was like, he's this warlock king that sounds evil. He like had this war of unification, which I think you could like how much better is he than the Lethri trying to take over when he like subjugated the other tribes to be unified, But exactly what you said. As soon as he was like dethroned, it was like, oh no, he was a pretty good guy, especially compared to Rhulad. And maybe that's why.
Man, Rhulad is setting up to be a really good villain. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen there, but I really dislike him in a good way.
Yeah.
There's a lot that you guys that's still coming in this book, and I need to keep like reminding myself, oh, I don't think they've read that yet. So I'm excited to do the part 2. I feel like the part 1, it's got some good stuff in it, but there's just so much action in the second part.
So Ryan, from the 10 books of the core Book of the Fallen, where does Midnight Tides slot in for you? Like, how much did you enjoy it overall?
Probably the middle. I don't think that I think the top for me was Memories of Ice and Toll the Hounds.
Memories of Ice is still my favorite so far.
Yeah, so those were both for the top for me. Yeah, it's probably towards the middle. I don't remember like a lot of the lower ranking or like a lot of the. I just kind of remember the ones that I liked the most, honestly.
Yeah. I'm really
I
excited.
think
to
this
see
is
where
kind of on
goes.
level. This is kind of on par with Memories Vice for me thus far, because the first half of Memories Vice was pretty similar to, like, it was just a massive buildup for pages and pages. Like,
You
it's-
weren't like a big fan of Memories of Ice, right?
well, I mean, the first half was fairly boring. Nothing really happened for hundreds
Are
of
you
pages.
kidding? You had
No.
undead Velociraptor warriors popping up, attacking people.
I mean, every now and then, but it was mostly
Yeah.
just kind of them like moving towards, where were they going? Pale? No, Pale
Pale.
was, what was
Yeah,
it? Pale?
Yeah, Pale and
Coral.
then Coral. Was it Coral first and then Pale?
Coral
Pale
was the
was-
last city that they fought at, I think.
Pale was back from Gardens of the Moon.
Coral is where
was it?
my boys, the bridge burners, were pretty much killed off.
Annihilated.
Yeah, so the ending of that, like, huge payoff, very exciting, like hundreds of pages of just excitement. But I mean, the middle, the first half was, I thought it was fairly mundane.
I
don't know.
loved like learning about just being in Whiskey Jack's shoes more, and
Yeah.
with what, oh man, I can't remember what's the huge warrior's name who's allies with Anomander Rake.
Caladan Brood.
Yeah.
Yes, he's so cool.
I-
Yeah,
I
Is
what
he
a
don't-
though? Like,
name, too.
I was expecting him to do a lot more. He did not do that much.
Well, he has a hammer that can waken.
So why didn't he
Burn.
do more?
Because there's a drawback if he does that, right?
Well, if he wakens Burn, I think like everybody on all the mortals on the planet will die.
Oh, right.
I think.
But if he doesn't waken her soon enough, then she will die, which means the whole Earth will die.
Something,
whole
something
planet.
like that.
Do we call the planet? Do we call the land Burn in Malazan? Like, I know there's like the continents, but it's the world itself, or is it Malazan land, like Rand
Yeah.
land?
I think it's Malazan land.
Malazan land.
I don't know. Yeah.
I really liked Memories of Ice, but I mean, you have a whole story there so far. I've really liked Midnight Tide so far. Not as quiet as much as Memories of Ice, but there's a lot of cool stuff that could still happen. The Guardian of the Name thing I thought was really cool. I'm excited to see how that plays out. We haven't mentioned this character yet, but Kettle's whole storyline, talking to the locked away
yeah.
spirits in
There's
the Azath
something
house
going
or
on
something.
with that, with the Azath. Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm really excited to see where that goes. Also, the dirtbag who cursed Kettle to be undead. What the heck was that about?
I have they revealed who that is? I can't remember.
I don't know. I don't think
No.
so.
No, Tehol is starting to kind of investigate as part of his deal with Shirk.
Yeah.
Honestly, I could read a whole book of just about Tehol and Bug. Maybe actually, are there? There might be some. Has he written
Bug's
any?
fun.
Has he
When he-
written any just like their adventures?
I don't think so. I could be
haven't heard of
wrong.
any. I love when he brings in the tea and it's just wool tea. It's so dumb. So funny though.
Erickson always has this like bizarro characters and weird humor and stuff, and I guess
Yeah.
these
Like
ones
Kruppa.
qualify. But yeah, Kruppa and Iskarl Pust and the whole like
Yeah. The donkey
shadow
with it.
house thing going on.
Yeah.
But these ones are the most grounded of his bizarro weird humor things.
Yeah.
And I just really enjoy it. I think it's really funny.
Yeah. What voice do you do for Bug in your head when you're reading him?
Kind of like old. He's an older guy for sure. That's kind of losing his marbles, but he's just like, he's almost like an
Is he?
Alfred. He's like
Yeah.
a butler type
feel like-
guy, but I don't know.
There's
I feel like
something I can't
Tehol's losing
remember.
his marbles more than Bug is.
No,
Oh, yeah, for
Tehol,
sure.
that's all an act. He
Well, right. But Bug to me is like, I don't know. He doesn't seem
But-
crazy at all. But
well, the fact that Bug goes along with it all, even though, like, that is the crazy part to me.
You know what this reminded me of? This reminded me a bit of I just read it. It's who's the gentleman Allomancer, or not Allomancer,
Alla-
the gentleman explorer from Mistborn.
Allomancer Jack.
Is it Allomancer Jack?
Yeah.
Right.
And he has like his servant who makes all
Yeah.
these notes about how like he's like, I can't believe like this. He basically like calls him out for like all this like inconsistencies and silliness. I mean, and not that Bug says it's just kind of like Bug's sometimes like, really, like, okay, or he just kind of goes along with it even though he knows it's like incoherent.
Yeah. The audiobook narrator has like this really like deep gravelly voice for Bug. He's like, I can't imitate
That's
it. It's
not
like,
what I imagined at all.
Master, blah, blah, blah. But and it makes it funnier because he just seems like so somber and like wise or something. I don't know. But and he's like, I'm just talking about we don't have enough wool, so you can have one leg or two short shorts. It's fun.
All right, Jake, do you have a worst to the best, or I would have to think about it myself. So if you don't have one, I think we just skip it.
No, I don't really have one. I don't think there hasn't been anything that I've really disliked in this. No, I have a worst of the best. I have a worst of the best.
Okay. Let's hear it
'Cause
then.
it was-
Maybe I'll come up with one while you do yours.
It was simultaneously like fascinating, the like world building that went into it and just like the creativity, but also like so weird that someone put a lot of thought into this. But when they were rejuvenating Shirk and they give her that parasite to help her have like
experience
feelings again. Well, I mean, it wasn't only supposed to be sexual experiences, but like,
yeah,
because it helps her feel like in general, like have a sense of feeling again. But just like I don't know, just it was like fascinating, like simultaneously fascinating, but also like, this is weird that someone put this much thought into this like creature. But that's my worst of the best.
I don't
I would
have
not.
one.
Yeah, I would not want to be blah blah or any of the guys who visited her while she was doing her thing.
The madam lady made it sound like customers love it. So
yeah, people seem to be pretty satisfied. She was taking all the business. Yeah.
Yep. I was listening to that. I can't remember if I was driving listening to it or like, I don't know, but Emily was listening at the same time. And she's like, what is going on here? I'm like, yeah, this is weird, but kind of fascinating, huh? She was like, what?
Yeah. My worst to the best. I don't have anything new. I think the thing that I was really interested in, but was just struggled with was the holds. Maybe I needed like a little bit more of a refresher in the text of the book. I don't know. Maybe I should watch Daniel Green's video. I know he has a video about the holds and the houses of Malazan and everything. And I watched it once and it was pretty good.
There's another Malazan guy I saw on YouTube. I wish I could remember his channel's name. Let me see if I can find it. But there's some that have like pretty good breakdowns of like races and magic system. Graceless Passion and Flip Phony and Iskar Jarek. Those are all the main ones I've watched. Anyways,
shout out. I just always come away from these books wishing that I understood more. And like on one hand, that's nice because I'm really into it and I like want to understand more. But on the other hand, I'm like, I don't want to work that hard. Like I just want to be able to read the book and enjoy it all and pick up on everything.
So this might be another factor into why I enjoy these books so much now, is having started to play Dark Souls and Elden Ring simultaneously, because I feel like so many scenes in these books could be like, or characters could be characters in a Souls-like game, just these like overpowered people with tons of backstory. And then also you don't know their backstory. Like the game itself doesn't really like tell you much. You have to work hard to figure out like what any of this means. You'll just walk into a room and a huge monster will appear out of a pool of blood and say, Mikola, forgive me, and then just start trying to kill you. And you're like, who's Mikola? Who are you? Why are you trying to kill me? What's going on? I don't know. And so I think like that kind of like challenging, just like it's really cool world building, but I'm confused but intrigued. It's like that meme from Knives Out. Doesn't make any sense. It compels me though. And then also because those types of games are so hard and take a lot of effort and like patience to like get good at. I don't know. For all those reasons, I feel like Malazan is the Souls-like version of fantasy series. So I think it's like it's starting to train me to like the grind a little bit.
We should do a campaign in Malazan world.
We should. Be way fun. We should hire Steven Erickson and Esselmont to DM for us.
Yeah, I'm sure they would they'd do
Great,
that.
Charity stream.
we'll put it on YouTube. They'll do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. If you want to support us and be a patron and get us towards that goal of doing a D&D campaign with Erickson and Esselmont, yeah, feel free to do that. All right. So we are gonna, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so, we'll finish the book. I don't know. It's probably gonna be on me, honestly, because I'm gonna be the bottleneck in all this. Jake reads this faster than I do. But once I'm done, and feel free to put pressure on me, YouTube watchers. Once I'm done, we'll do a full review of the book. And Ryan, you can tell us all the exciting things that you've bottled up during the course of this conversation.
All right, sounds good.
Sweet. Thanks for joining.
All right. See you guys later.
Bye.